Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best this Christmas? Now you can, with the world's softest pajamas by Pajamagram. Created by a team of pajama experts, the world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny, like cashmere, only better. She'll love how heavenly they feel. Includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So visit pajamagram.com or call 1-800-GIVE-PJs.
This is the Locker Room Podcast.
Ryan has been talking mess all morning about how he could body up Terrell Owens on the football field. Well,
Facts.
we've got a special guest joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line here on the Locker Room. It is Terrell Owens, should be Hall of Famer. I'm firmly in that camp. But T.O., what is your response, man? Ryan Hollins is out here talking a lot of mess about you.
What's up, baby?
First of all, I don't play defense, so he wouldn't be bodying up with me. But he'll probably, I know he's mentioned Richard Sherman, so he might be biting a little bit more off than he can really chew. You know, I understand your length, your verticality, but I mean, I don't know what your footwork is like, and I really don't know what your hands are like. So again, when it comes to that,
the hands are special, T.O. The hands are special. And the footwork is nothing but a step slide, pivot, post, up and under, baby. Let's eat.
T.O., you made a living going across the middle, too. Like, do you think Ryan's got the toughness to take some of these shots he's going to take from these guys?
Well, you know, I mean, the stigma with basketball players as why they play basketball is that they're a little soft. And if you watch, and if you've been watching the playoffs, these guys are getting ticky-tack fouls. I mean, they're going into all the theatrics. So I don't know about the going across the middle. And I did hear Ryan say that he wouldn't like to go across the middle. But if you're going to be a football player, I mean, you got to go across the middle.
I'm with it. I ain't never been scared, T.
Talking to Terrell Owens here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Go ahead, Pat.
T.O., I'm just curious, when you guys did play, and Ryan said you guys played one-on-one, and that you did beat him, and what was the move that you were able to take advantage of him on?
It was a
game of horse. Pat. I thought it was one-on-one, because I think I would have taken T.O. knows how to body up and get you on his hip and ride you all the way to the rim.
We were playing horse, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, my athletic ability is far greater than Ryan's athletic ability. Let's let that be known. I'm letting that be known right now. So we went to a more skillful, you know, game of horse, you know, so that was our game of one-on-one. So, again, for a big guy, I will say he did surprise me with his shot. But that's the thing with these basketball players. They have muscle memory. These guys are in the gym nonstop. And for all you guys that are out there listening, kids and whomever, if you're trying to perfect and want to be at the best and be on the top of your game, the gym, repetition, that's where it starts. And Ryan has been a great guy to really learn from, understanding that this guy right here, he knows his role, understanding what he brings to the game, and that's why he played in the NBA for so many years.
Talking to Terrell Owens here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and I'm very interested. So, T.O. Ryan, how did you guys get to know each other? Like, where did this come from?
I mean, I'm a fan of basketball. I mean, I think Ryan has an affection for football, but all my life when I grew up, I wanted to play basketball. And it's funny we're having this conversation because I'm here in Vegas right now for the Bo Jackson Charity Golf Tournament, and I ran into a guy that played with the Chicago Bulls, Cliff Levingston. And again, you talk about a role player, a guy that played his position to a T and helped those Bulls teams win championships. He basically said the same thing. It's like he understood his role. And for me, when I play basketball, I know my role. I'm not a point guard. I can consider myself somewhat of like a Scottie Pippen. I'm a tweener. I play in transition. I can get buckets. I'm very athletic, and that's my game.
T.O., you're 6'3". You wouldn't do anything at the rim. We got 7-footers down there waiting for you, T.O. It sounds good in pickleball, but it's not happening. What? But T.O., let's go back to football. T.O., you wouldn't have a chance, T.O. You're 6'3". Ryan, you're only 6'3".
Ryan, hey, Ryan, Ryan, I'm about to put you on blast. I remember years ago,
yes,
and I do have some people that can back me up on this. Don't make me get them on the phone call. Ryan, you tried to dunk on me, and I blocked your shot.
Oh, God.
You grabbed me and you fouled me. Anybody can foul. That's the reason football players don't play basketball is because they have no coordination. They grab and they foul. T.O.
Right. That is not even going to fly. I have basketball cred from a number of guys around the NBA, so that's not going to fly. I blocked you,
T.O.
and you're 7
T.O. It sounds great, T.O., but I'm not buying it. Now, T.O. Let's go back to football.
I'm all in on this, by the way.
I'm not buying it, T.O.
I'm going with T.O.'s version.
Football. Of course you are, Pat. You're going with Jordan, and I'm going with LeBron. We're on other sides of the fence today. Now, T.O., let's go back to football. Yeah. You are a Hall of Famer, hands down, 49er for life in my heart. My guy. Day one of my favorite players of all time. And Goodell recently brought Chad Ochocinco in to help him talk about celebrations. Now, I want to know why he didn't bring the man of the celebrations, the man who kissed the star, the man who made popcorn famous in the NBA, NFL. T.O., you got to talk to us about that a little bit, man, because I feel real slighted right now, and I want to know what's going on with the NFL.
Hey, I don't know, man. I don't know why they want to go with second or third best. I mean, everybody knows that I'm one of the ones, the best ones to do it. I wasn't a trendsetter. I didn't start this thing, but I think in my era, everybody saw that I was somewhat of a trendsetter for what guys are doing now. My motivation for the dances and all the touchdown celebrations that I came up with was to get in the end zone. That was my motivation to score every Sunday. And really the challenge that presented itself with every matchup that guys had with me on Sundays, Mondays, whenever it was. So, there were guys, again, I learned from the best in the game. That was Jerry Rice. I had a number of great coaches, but Jerry's the best in the game. So in order to try to get on that level, he set the bar for me from a small guy, a guy from a small town, Alexander City, Alabama, went to Benjamin Russell High School, then went to a small school, UT Chattanooga. So again, I had to make myself known. So in order to do that, then I had to get in the end zone, and why not celebrate? I understand that these fans come out, they worked hard all week. They want to come out, they want to watch a good football game, but at the same time, you want some entertainment. So that's what I try to provide them with.
Is there any celebration that you can think of that is over the line? I mean, is there any kind of touchdown celebration that is just too much in your opinion?
I mean, I think that's the thing with me and my celebrations, and I think over the years when the league has tried to take away the fun and stuff from the guys that really try to celebrate and bring excitement to the game, I think the obscene gestures, things of that nature, that's distasteful, and when you mess with or tinker with the integrity of the game, that's when it's over the top. I think the things that I did, they were very creative. They weren't over the top. They were fun. People had never seen what I had done before. I think when I pulled the Sharpie out of my sock, that was me being creative. That was me being creative. That was impromptu. I did that right before that series, and that was the confidence that I possessed in myself, that I knew that I was going to score on that drive. And it had nothing to do with my opponent or whoever it was. It was Sean Springs. Sean Springs and I were good friends. It could have been, it could have been Harry, Dick, or Joe on the other side. I would have done the same thing. It just so happened that, me and Sean are friends. We shared a mutual financial guy in there in Arizona, and I ended up giving him the ball. So that's where all the commotion and the chaos started. But again, that was just me being creative.
It's just incredible. It's the locker room here. Mike Golic Jr., Ryan Hollins, Pat Bradley, talking to Terrell Owens on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. T.O., I know you said you're out there for a golf tournament. You got time to stick around with us for one more segment? We want to get you in on like the LeBron Jordan debate, some of the Richard Sherman stuff. You got time for that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm loving it.
Sir.
I want it.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
On the line, getting his opinion on a lot of things, and I want to jump right back into this because we don't have a ton of time with you, but with the NFL offseason, there's been so much focus on Odell Beckham missing OTAs and things of that nature. You had Richard Sherman out in Seattle and the piece we just read on him and maybe the tumultuous relationship there. And I'd be interested, such a large part of your career was being that guy that was often criticized for your role in certain locker rooms. How did you handle all of that attention of being a guy that was that polarizing and did receive a lot of attention and a lot of times a lot of blame from people?
Well, I was, number one, I was very confident in my ability, despite what was being said, with the commentary from a number of analysts around the country. I was just very confident in my ability, and I did everything necessary to prevent those things from happening, which is performing poorly, which would have validated some of the things that they were saying about me. When you talk about Odell Beckham Jr. and the things that he's doing now, missing OTAs. I don't know what that's about, and if it's, because of a new girlfriend, things of that nature. All he's doing is setting himself up for even more criticism, because if he's going into the season, he's injured or he's not playing up to par, then these are things that, he's setting himself up for a lot of criticism, and then he can't go and then, not take the backlash or be not as receptive to all the criticism that he's going to get, because he's really bringing all the negative attention to himself. I talked to Odell Beckham Jr. last year. I know he was going through a lot of issues, and, we had a great talk. And so I think with the talk that we had, it turned this season around.
Talking to Terrell Owens here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And so, for as far as that goes, have you talked to him at all this offseason? Is he someone that you would encourage to reach out to you right now?
I have not talked to him this offseason. I've run into him, but we haven't talked at any great length about anything. But Odell Beckham, he's an individual. He's definitely a talented receiver. I think in order for him to really be the team leader that his team needs, then he needs to do the necessary things, such as going to OTAs, being a leader, the things and the route that he's taking right now. Again, I think that's a recipe for disaster, and it's not going to bode well for him going forward.
T.O., I got a question. I've been thinking about you, actually, with Tony Romo retiring. Does that surprise you? And were you also surprised he'd get a chance to compete for the job last year?
No, it's I guess in a sense it is somewhat surprising, because I know he wanted to really continue to play football, but I think understanding that what's most important for him and his family is his health at the stage of his career. I think, if he could have gotten the right opportunity to go in and play and really compete for, I guess, a dream job at this stage of his career, maybe he would have considered that. But I think he's done a great job of really kind of assessing really his health and what's most important, and I think that's his family and his kids.
Tio, we got about a minute left here. Really wanted you to weigh in on LeBron versus Jordan. Who, in this debate, which side do you fall on here? We've been very all over the place this morning.
I hate this is only a minute, because you guys are comparing LeBron to Jordan when, again, for me personally, I don't think he surpassed Kobe Bryant.
Oh, okay.
You think about what Kobe Bryant has done and his body of work, then it's hard to skip over Kobe and then go to MJ.
Gotcha. All right. Terrell Owens falls on the Kobe Bryant side of things.
T.O., really
quick. I like both of them. All three are phenomenal athletes. By no means, trust me, don't get me twisted by any means. It's in my category, in my box. It's MJ, Kobe, LeBron.
Gotcha. The top three from T.O.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
We've got Terrell Owens joining us here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, getting great perspective from him on a lot of the things happening in locker rooms in both the NBA and the NFL. We were talking before, T.O., about Odell Beckham Jr. and some of the things going on with him during this offseason, and so much of the focus goes on things like the boat trip and him being out in California now. You hear about him being out with Johnny Manziel and Iggy Azalea and all these people, and people focus on a lot of that outside stuff that we all get to see as the public. I'm interested from your perspective, because you got a lot of that as well. What was the perspective of your teammates, the guys that saw you day in and day out and still noticed all of these things but also got to see you work?
Well, that's the thing. When you talk about professionalism, and I think that's one of the things that's probably going to come into question when you talk about OBJ, especially with the things that he's doing now that's not really helping the cause. But in terms of my teammates, they knew that I came to work every day. I mean, I came to practice. I practiced, just as hard as I did, as I played in the game. I try to be a professional at all costs. But, again, that doesn't mean that I'm not without error or mistakes. They're going to guys have missed meetings. I'm sure there's been a number of guys that have missed meetings and done little things, as they played the game. But when you come to practice every day, you work hard, you play hard, and you see the results, then some of these things, outside things, kind of get swept under the rug. But I think, in Odell's case, he has to be careful because, again, as we alluded to and I mentioned to earlier, when you go if you go into the season and then injuries start happening, and then obviously you got to sit out, or you're playing and you're not playing up to the standards in which everybody's expecting. You have a new shoe contract. All these things come into play, and all these outside unnecessary issues like missing OTAs. I don't know what that's about. If it's hanging out with the girlfriend or whatever, that's not going to bode well. Not only for the public, but not even for the organization. So I think those are some of the things that he has to clean up. I think the world of OBJ as a person, as a talent. I know we talked about individuality. I don't have a problem with him being an individual as long as he comes to play. You have to be that type of person to not really stand in a room, stand. You have to stand alone, be yourself. And I think that's what he's doing, and I don't have a problem with that at all.
Now, T.O., Richard Sherman, another strong personality. On the defensive side of things, he made this statement that he would dream of playing for the Cowboys or the Patriots. Now, as an athlete, as a guy who's been there before, how do you advise him in this situation? I feel like he's playing with fire, and what can the Seahawks do?
How do you feel like he's playing with fire? This guy right here, I think he's very calculated with what he's doing. I think Richard and everybody else know he's a very smart individual. If things aren't going well where he is right now, and if he's posturing, gesturing to part ways, or really solicit some of the other teams that are out there that he could possibly play for. You think about the Cowboys and the Patriots. I think he sees where he can fit in. He sees those markets and see where he could possibly win a championship. When you look at Dallas, there's some missing pieces there. He definitely could help there. And you look at the New England Patriots, who hasn't gone over there that could possibly have the ability of a Richard Sherman and try to fit in, to their pieces of the puzzle and to help them win a championship. So again, I don't have a problem with Richard Sherman or what he's saying and what he's done. This guy is again, he's a consummate professional. He does it. He comes to play. That's Richard Sherman. I expect nothing less.
T.O., part of the story.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
You got it.
All right. Part of the story, T.O., is there was sort of a rift, even going back to the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson throwing that pick, not giving it to Marshawn Lynch. Had you experienced a problem at times when you played with the offense and defense within the locker room? Have you guys ever was there a time where you were at odds with each other? Maybe not one side not holding up their end of the bargain?
Well, I think yes and no, but I think, to Richard Sherman's credit, I think you got to look at the magnitude of the game. I may have had some issues during the regular season or what have you, but again, regular season and Super Bowl is a bit different. When you could definitely have a chance to be back-to-back champions, 2 Super Bowl champion winner. That's what's rubbing. I'm pretty sure it's not just Richard Sherman. It is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. Again, you don't get a chance like that to be in the Super Bowl back-to-back and have an opportunity to win it. And in that situation, there are some questionable calls. There are some questionable play calling and decisions made during the course of the game, but none bigger than the situation to pass the ball versus run it when you have a guy like Marshawn Lynch at the 1 yard line.
We're talking to Terrell Owens here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It's the Locker Room. Mike Golic Jr., Ryan Hollins here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. T.O., to that end, you had one of the better Super Bowl performances that we'd seen from a wide receiver, albeit in a losing effort. Were there any of those hard feelings that you had to get over for yourself coming off of that game where you felt like you left it all out there?
Man, I did. It's funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking about that. I was somewhere and they were replaying all the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl great games and things of that nature, and it made me really reflect back to when I played in Super Bowl 39, and I caught 9 passes for 122 yards. Everything that was thrown to me, I caught, and in my mind, I'm like, man, if I would have gotten or could have gotten 1 or 2 more opportunities, I think we could have won that game. But again, you can't go back in time and change anything. But, for me, I think that's why a lot of people respect me and what I did for the game, despite what all the criticism has been about me and my character, is that when I stepped on the field, I brought it. It didn't matter, if I was injured, everybody goes through a bunch of injuries, throughout the course of the year, but I played hurt, with all my teams. And there are games that I played with broken stuff and nobody ever knew about it. But the most notable one was when I played in the Super Bowl with, when I had, all my ligaments torn in my ankle and I had 2 screws in a plate and my fibula was broken. So I think that's why people respect, me and what I've done for the game, and really just my personality. I mean, I had fun with the game, and I wish I would have enjoyed it more. That's why if I could be given the opportunity to play again, I would love it, because I never really felt like I really got to enjoy the game, because for me it was always work. I wanted to win so bad that I didn't really take time to enjoy it.
It's really interesting to hear you say that now.
Wow.
Was it
Wow.
And was that something, because I know you mentioned how much coming up under Jerry Rice meant to you and how much you learned from him. Was that something that got instilled then? Because you could argue maybe that's what Odell has missed now, is just having that veteran tutor of that kind of caliber. I mean, how much did you take away? Is there a particular moment that stuck out with you and Jerry where you're like, wow, this is really what being a professional is all about?
Well, I saw it on an everyday basis. Coming in as a rookie in 1996, coming from a small school, I wasn't really exposed to the greatness, all the greatness that I got exposed to when I went into that locker room. You talk about guys like Mert, Hank, Harris Barton, Ken Norton, Steve
my guys.
Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best this Christmas? Now you can, with the world's softest pajamas by Pajamagram. Created by a team of pajama experts, the world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny, like cashmere, only better. She'll love how heavenly they feel. Includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So visit pajamagram.com or call 1-800-GIVE-PJs.
This is the Locker Room Podcast.
Ryan has been talking mess all morning about how he could body up Terrell Owens on the football field. Well,
Facts.
We've got a special guest joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line here on the Locker Room. It is Terrell Owens, should be Hall of Famer. I'm firmly in that camp. But T.O., what is your response, man? Ryan Hollins is out here talking a lot of mess about you.
What's up, baby?
First of all, I don't play defense, so he wouldn't be bodying up with me. But he'll probably, I know he's mentioned Richard Sherman, so he might be biting a little bit more off than he can really chew. I understand your length, your verticality. But, I don't know what your footwork is like, and I really don't know what your hands are like. So, again, when it comes to that,
the hands are special, T.O. The hands are special. And the footwork is nothing but a step slide, pivot, post, up and under, baby. Let's eat.
T.O., you made a living going across the middle, too. Like, do you think Ryan's got the toughness to take some of these shots he's going to take from these guys?
Well, the stigma with basketball players as why they play basketball is that they're a little soft. And if you watch, and if you've been watching the playoffs, these guys are getting ticky-tack fouls. They're going into all the theatrics. So I don't know about the going across the middle. And I did hear Ryan say that he wouldn't like to go across the middle. But if you're going to be a football player, you got to go across the middle.
I'm with it. I ain't never been scared, T.
Talking to Terrell Owens here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Go ahead, Pat.
T.O., I'm just curious, when you guys did play, and Ryan said you guys played one-on-one, and that you did beat him, and what was the move that you were able to take advantage of him on?
It was a
game of horse. Pat. I thought it was one-on-one, because I think I would have taken T.O. knows how to body up and get you on his hip and ride you all the way to the rim.
We were playing horse, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, my athletic ability is far greater than Ryan's athletic ability. Let's let that be known. I'm letting that be known right now. So we went to a more skillful, game of horse, so that was our game of one-on-one. So, again, for a big guy, I will say he did surprise me with his shot. But that's the thing with these basketball players. They have muscle memory. These guys are in the gym nonstop. And for all you guys that are out there listening, kids and whomever, if you're trying to perfect and want to be at the best and be on the top of your game, the gym, repetition, that's where it starts. And Ryan has been a great guy to really learn from, understanding that this guy right here, he knows his role, understanding what he brings to the game, and that's why he played in the NBA for so many years.
Talking to Terrell Owens here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and I'm very interested. So, T.O. Ryan, how did you guys get to know each other? Like, where did this come from?
I'm a fan of basketball. I mean, I think Ryan has an affection for football, but all my life when I grew up, I wanted to play basketball. And it's funny we're having this conversation because I'm here in Vegas right now for the Bo Jackson Charity Golf Tournament, and I ran into a guy that played with the Chicago Bulls, Cliff Levingston. And again, you talk about a role player, a guy that played his position to a T and helped those Bulls teams win championships. He basically said the same thing. It's like he understood his role. And for me, when I play basketball, I know my role. I'm not a point guard. I can consider myself somewhat of like a Scottie Pippen. I'm a tweener. I play in transition. I can get buckets. I'm very athletic, and that's my game.
T.O., you're 6'3". You wouldn't do anything at the rim. We got 7-footers down there waiting for you, T.O. It sounds good in pickleball, but it's not happening. What? But T.O., let's go back to football. T.O., you wouldn't have a chance, T.O. You're 6'3".
Ryan,
you're only 6'3".
Hey, Ryan, Ryan, I'm about to put you on blast. I remember years ago,
yes,
and I do have some people that can back me up on this. Don't make me get them on the phone call. Ryan, you tried to dunk on me, and I blocked your shot.
Oh,
T.O., you grabbed me and you fouled me. Anybody can foul. That's the reason football players don't play basketball is because they have no coordination. They grab and they foul. T.O.
Ryan, that is not even going to fly. I have basketball cred from a number of guys around the NBA, so that's not going to fly. I blocked you,
T.O.,
and you're 7
T.O., it sounds great, T.O., but I'm not buying it. Now, T.O., let's go back to football.
I'm all in on this, by the way.
I'm not buying it, T.O.,
I'm going with T.O.'s version.
Football. Of course you are, Pat. You're going with Jordan, and I'm going with LeBron. We're on other sides of the fence today. Now, T.O., let's go back to football. Yeah. You are a Hall of Famer, hands down, 49er for life in my heart. My guy. Day one of my favorite players of all time. And Goodell recently brought Chad Ochocinco in to help him talk about celebrations. Now, I want to know why he didn't bring the man of the celebrations, the man who kissed the star, the man who made popcorn famous in the NBA, NFL. T.O., you got to talk to us about that a little bit, man, because I feel real slighted right now, and I want to know what's going on with the NFL.
Hey, I don't know, man. I don't know why they want to go with second or third best. I mean, everybody knows that I'm one of the ones, the best ones to do it. I wasn't a trendsetter. I didn't start this thing, but I think in my era, everybody saw that I was somewhat of a trendsetter for what guys are doing now. My motivation for the dances and all the touchdown celebrations that I came up with was to get in the end zone. That was my motivation to score every Sunday. And really the challenge that presented itself with every matchup that guys had with me on Sundays, Mondays, whenever it was. So, there were guys, again, I learned from the best in the game. That was Jerry Rice. I had a number of great coaches, but Jerry's the best in the game. So in order to try to get on that level, He set the bar for me from a small guy, a guy from a small town, Alexander City, Alabama, went to Benjamin Russell High School, then went to a small school, UT Chattanooga. So, again, I had to make myself known. So in order to do that, then I had to get in the end zone, and why not celebrate? You know, I understand that these fans come out, they worked hard all week. They want to come out, they want to watch a good football game, but at the same time, you want some entertainment. So that's what I try to provide them with.
Is there any celebration that you can think of that is over the line? I mean, is there any kind of touchdown celebration that is just too much? In your opinion?
I mean, I think that's the thing with me and my celebrations, and I think over the years when the league has tried to take away the fun and stuff from the guys that try to celebrate and bring excitement to the game. I think the obscene gestures, things of that nature, that's distasteful, and when you mess with or tinker with the integrity of the game, that's when it's over the top. I think the things that I did, they were very creative. They weren't over the top. They were fun. People had never seen what I had done before. I think when I pulled the Sharpie out of my sock, that was me being creative. That was me being creative. That was impromptu. I did that right before that series, and that was the confidence that I possessed in myself, that I knew that I was going to score on that drive. And it had nothing to do with my opponent or whoever it was. It was Sean Springs. Sean Springs and I were good friends. It could have been, it could have been Harry, Dick, or Joe on the other side. I would have done the same thing. It just so happened that, me and Sean are friends. We shared a mutual financial guy in there in Arizona, and I ended up giving him the ball. So that's where all the commotion and the chaos started. But again, that was just me being creative.
It's just incredible. It's the locker room here. Mike Golic Jr., Ryan Hollins, Pat Bradley, talking to Terrell Owens on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. T.O., I know you said you're out there for a golf tournament. You got time to stick around with us for one more segment? We want to get you in on like the LeBron Jordan debate, some of the Richard Sherman stuff. You got time for that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm loving it.
Sir.
I want it.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
On the line, getting his opinion on a lot of things, and I want to jump right back into this because we don't have a ton of time with you, but with the NFL offseason, there's been so much of focus on Odell Beckham missing OTAs and things of that nature. You had Richard Sherman out in Seattle and the piece we just read on him and maybe the tumultuous relationship there. And I'd be interested, such a large part of your career was being that guy that was often criticized for your role in certain locker rooms. How did you handle all of that attention of being a guy?
The group here, group there. But before you run out, there is no time I can think of where you're more together as a team. Everybody's around, get the hands in, touching each other, jumping on top of each other. That is probably the realest moment of all because you're collectively one going out there on the court or the field. Now, afterwards, after the game is played, you get a little bit of divisions maybe depending on what happened during the game. But that's just the moments. I know you guys probably feel the same way.
Yeah,
games. We practice for the games, but it's those moments in the locker room and running out that you really keep with you.
Hey, Patton, on the same moment, on bad teams I've been on, we just kind of walk out. There's no pregame tradition. There's no nothing that you do.
Good point.
That is true. You can always tell when it's forced. You can always tell the guys that are trying to do something that's outside of themselves a little bit, and that's why you mentioned Paul Pierce and KG being the guys that help get everyone hype. Pat, that's why you mentioned, having those teammates that you knew you could count on, the guys that were going to be the spark plug for your group. You never want to see that forced. You never try to see someone get hype who you know is not really that guy or that into it.
That's it. And I was probably the most unlikeliest guy to get everybody hyped, but my God, when they saw me jumping up and down with my 23-inch, 24-inch vert, they knew it was time to strap it on, boys. Let's go. We got a mission here.
Golic, we can't end this show without you talking about the Notre Dame tunnel. What happened, my man? I have to know what happened in Notre Dame. Come on, what's it like?
Well, and so that's the thing is I was always the guy in the back of the line because before games I used to get really up, but my nerves would be going crazy, and I'm a big guy, so I like to eat a lot of pregame meals. So sometimes I would let loose my lunch in the tunnel. So I made sure I was in the back where they weren't snapping the pictures. I got that out back there. But you got the guys at the front of the tunnel. You've got the hype team all-stars at the front of the tunnel. And some of them are the guys that don't get a ton of burn, but they just like being in front by the coach, by everyone else. But then you've got the guy that leads the charge. And for us, we had two guys, Sergio Brown and Brian Smith, that were both like our all-time hype men. And they were both great players for us. Sergio went on and played a bunch of years in the NFL. But you'd hear him, and we'd get in the tunnel, and we'd be back there. The band would be playing out in the field, and we'd just hear one of them at the beginning of the tunnel. It'd be real quiet in there for a second. They go, y'all boys ain't crunk. And then you hear, shoot, y'all boys ain't crunk, y'all boys ain't crunk. And it would start to crescendo. And again, you don't want to be that guy that goes too early on that one. What was my man's? You don't want to be Malcolm that goes too early. But you had that slow build-up, and by the end, everyone's jumping around there. Y'all boys ain't crunk, shoo. Y'all boys ain't crunk, shoo. And you have, of course, the perfect counter to all this is that while you've got this going on, it is chaos in the tunnel. We're getting ready to go. It's USC or Michigan out on the field, and you've got Notre Dame student body that skews predominantly Caucasian that's looking down on this scenario like, who's not crunk? I don't exactly understand all this right now. So it was always an interesting dynamic. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people recent Google searches in Notre Dame Stadium were the word crunk from 2008 to 2012.
I'm curious, what position in football, or was it offensive, defensive lineman? Who was it that were the hype men on the team? I mean, because sometimes I see it may be the quarterback at times. Is there a particular personality or position that's always driving that?
Yeah, it depends, because I spent a little bit of time with the New Orleans Saints, and like down there, Drew Brees is the guy before the game. He goes into every year with his pre-planned pregame hype speech that he has, and they don't tell the outside world about. But most of the other places, defensive guys really hammer home on that. D linemen, defensive backs, like I mentioned before, they just have that natural juice, because that's that side of the ball. You have to play with so much energy. You have to play with that unbridled enthusiasm, because your job is see ball, get ball. Like on my side, I had to get hype before the game and then dial it back in, because I had to think. I had to read everything that was going on. We had to communicate. Being the guys up front, you weren't afforded that luxury of being able to go out there and just turn it loose.
Thinking man's position. I like the defensive guys. They just smash things, right?
Oh, yeah.
C-ball hit. That's C-man hit.
I like to remind my dad. My dad was a defensive lineman for a number of years, played with the Eagles, and I like to remind him, listen, it's a lot harder to create than it is to destroy, and that's what those Neanderthals on the defensive side of the ball used to have to get into. So, Dad, wherever you are listening right now, you know what it is.
The kind of savages that walk around a locker room with no flip-flops or,
I don't know who would do
kind
that.
of shoes on their feet. Right. Only defensive guys, there's no doubt.
Who would do anything like that? Ryan, now I know you played overseas as well, and sometimes the language barrier becomes an interesting thing. In the NBA in general, basketball in general, I feel like it's such an international sport. But you mentioned during the break you had an interesting pregame hype speech from an unlikely source.
So listen, I guess the all-time winningest coach in Italian league history. This man was a legend. Forgive me because I forget his name. It was my first game, okay? He comes
I guarantee it ended in a vowel, though.
Yes.
Comes in. Yes. Chiara, Marcio, Isalio, Benedicto. He comes in and gives us a pregame speech. The guy's all of about 85 to 90 years old. He walks in with the cane and a walker. As he starts to give the speech, he apologizes through the speech to the English-speaking Americans, and he says, sorry, my English isn't great. But I felt like he knew his English was amazing because everything he said was so sharp. Guys, leave it on the floor, play for the next man. You understand the history, what you play for your families, you play for your city, you play for all this and the above. And as he finishes, he walks by our head coach and gives him a slap on the butt. He slaps him on the butt and walks off with this white-on-white Air Force Ones. We ran out and won the game by 20 points. And I said, man, this old man is a savage. He still has it. I'd lace him up for him any day. My first game. Torino, right into Italy.
That's how you get it started. The white-on-white forces, too.
The lesson I learned there is anytime you want to get hype, smack somebody on the rear end, that'll get them going. That's probably okay.
I mean,
down there overseas.
You would not have. This guy was 90. He walked in with it. I mean, with the walker, they had to help him. He had somebody on one hand, somebody on the other. But when he got into his speech, it was like, boom! It was game mode. He was back.
Guys, I've completely forgot to mention something, and I feel like I've done you a disservice right here talking about pregame scenarios. Did your guys' teams ever do like a pregame video or anything, like a pregame hype video before you guys went out? Because
we never did that.
Really?
You did it?
I have the all-time great, the pregame hype video they showed us. I played in the national championship game in 2012-13 season. We got stomped out by Alabama pretty bad, but the results of the game notwithstanding, in the pregame we would do something called Mental Edge, where they would show us a video of highlights clipped from earlier games, set to great music, a lot of the great locker room music to get you ready to go. The one they showed us before the national championship game, picture this, fellas. So the tunnel at Notre Dame Stadium, famous. It's got the long board that's got every national championship team in their record going on down it, that play like a champion today sign that you hit. It's part of the folklore of college football. So they show us the pregame video of that, and it's a janitor in his quarters in the stadium, and he's watching on TV, and you hear on TV it said Notre Dame wins the 2013 BCS National Championship, and you hear all the cheering in the background, and the guy walks over. It's real quiet because he's in the stadium by himself. And he walks over with the blue paint can, and he gets up on top of the ladder, and you see him putting in, and they're weaving in our highlights the whole way, cutting back and forth, and you just see him going up there and writing 2012 Notre Dame national champions and our record of 13-0 right there, and you see the confetti coming down. You see him putting it up there on this board. I promise you guys, I'm sitting in the back of this room, tears streaming down my face, shaking right now, because this is all I had ever wanted my whole life, and they put it right there. They made it real in that moment right there. And we got hype, and we took everything there, and we brought it out on the field, and we got beat 42-14, and it didn't go all that well. But, man, that pregame hype video, if it's somewhere right now, I need someone from Notre Dame to send that to me, because it is truly and impossibly lit.
You know what's great about that story, though, Golic, is in that moment, you actually felt what it was like to win a national championship. You had won it already in the pregame. That could be the problem sometimes with pregame hype videos, though, because you guys you were already crying. You were already probably raising the trophy up.
Exactly. You know what that is?
Then you had to go on the field.
Then we had to go on the field, and Alabama clearly maxed out on when they were supposed to get hype. They got hype at opening kickoff, and it showed from there on out.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. This is The Locker Room Podcast.
Another guy feels like we've gotten a lot of exposure with in the news over this course of really this year so far in 2017 has been LeVar Ball. He's been a big name. His son Lonzo, big-time player at your alma mater, Ryan, at UCLA. Yes, going to be one of the top picks in the draft, potentially to your Boston Celtics, Pat. Although he said, so we hear now in the news that Lonzo is reportedly not going to work out with the Boston Celtics, who have the number one pick. We have his former coach.
Sorry, Pat.
I'm sure you'll somehow find a way to get over it. No one disses the Celtics, Pat. You know that.
That's absolutely right. Who's he think he is, this kid, huh?
I tell you, and now you have at UCLA his former coach, Steve Alford, saying that LeVar, his dad, wasn't a distraction when he was at UCLA, and the triple threat here, Triple B, we've got the video of him and his AAU basketball team facing off, getting drummed in the process of their game, but him delivering a halftime speech that we all found pretty entertaining for a lot of reasons. I know, Ryan, especially you.
Can I take you into my life real quick? Can I open up to you guys? Can I open up to the listeners, to you, Pat,
Scary
to you,
place,
Golic?
I say, everyone prepare yourselves, strap in, sit down wherever you are. Ryan's about to, expose himself to you guys in the most appropriate way possible.
No, this is serious. We're going to get a little serious. So when I first heard the statements where LeVar said his son is better than Steph Curry and that you can throw him on the Warriors right now and he would, the Warriors would have won last year. They'd be better. And I'm just like, who is this guy? He's killing his son's chances. He's out of control. He's the worst dad ever. And then I sat back and I had to think. Guys. And I said, he reminds me of somebody. I lost my dad 2 years ago. And Danier Hollins had so many LeVar Ball moments. You take out the ego. He had so many LeVar Ball moments. And I say LeVar Ball moments in the fact that he believed that me, his son, could achieve and could do any and everything. And he had tunnel vision. He wasn't even slightly realistic. I could block LeBron's shot. If a guy hit a last-second three or he missed a three, Ryan would have made that shot. And he would brag and tell any and everybody about me and the things that I could do and I would do. That's what my father was. That's what he did. And I had to think, and I look back at a proud father, and I say, LeVar Ball is riding for his kids. He's riding for his boys. Now, things went on and things progressed. He didn't stop. He gets a little more outrageous every time we hear him. And then the next thing we know, he drops a pair of sneakers. Doesn't just drop the sneakers as he turns down Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas and walks away from potential $20 million to his boy, to his family, to their brand, to their legacy. He says, I'm going to create my own sneakers. We were in the locker room, and all the guys said, because this shows the locker room, we're going to take you in the locker room. We said, he's ridiculous. This guy's out of control. He's done too much. Then I had to think about it, and Pat, I think you feel the same way I do. LeVar has opened up the door for athletes to have their own ownership, their own brand. We make $20 million, but Nike makes 30 or 40 or 70 or 100 million off of a shoe. He said, we're going to keep our money to ourselves. We're going to keep our money in-house, Pat. So I'm starting to become, in an odd way, a LeVar Ball fan. I think he's a little smart. And I'll give you one more before I turn it. One more. He turned heads. He turned heads to everybody because America, we are not racist anymore, and you cannot do these things. And he said UCLA, racially charged comments. He said UCLA has a bunch of white players who aren't athletic, and that's why we didn't win. And everybody got fired up. He said, LeVar, you can't say that. You can't do that. And then you sat back and forgot that his boys are half white. LeVar might be half white, and his wife is a white woman. So is this man racist? Not at all. Does he have a right to have said what he said? It's a little charged, a little extra, but he knew exactly what he was doing. Pat, how do you feel about this?
You know something? I didn't know you were going to bring that up about your father, and I'm glad you did, because early on I had the same reaction as everybody else. Let the kid be his own. Let his play be what speaks loudest. Right? Easily you could say that. Then the more you start to think about LeVar Ball, I went back immediately, just like you did. I thought about my older brother who spent years beating on me, okay, on the court. He was that LeVar Ball. And I had a conversation with somebody that said, listen, we all need somebody who believes we can do things that we don't even believe we can do. So it's a weird dynamic. He rubs people the wrong way. But my older brother's the same way. He said that he believed that I could still probably get, start tomorrow for the Golden State Warriors Thursday. But, anybody, especially athletes, you do have, as confident as you got to be, you have those moments where you do maybe doubt a little bit, and there's somebody in your life that's going to push you ahead. And if they got no doubt in them about your abilities, then you're going to feel the same way. So that's why I'm on board with that. And I understand one thing, it's about branding. And what we see more and more is guys understanding how to brand themselves. You got Ryan Hollins over there. He's got Instagram, Facebook. He's got everything rolling right there. He can do it himself these days. You don't necessarily need these other bigger companies to do it. And to answer your question, I do think there are a lot of people out there that are like, dang it, we should have thought of what LeVar Ball is doing before we signed with another school. And my only question is this. The Zo2s came out, right, fellas?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I miss the first pair? Did I miss the first ones that came out? How are you going to come out with Zo2s? I never saw Golic, I never saw the first ones. You want to
talk about a marketing strategy. That's what you do. You create the intrigue, and then later on, you drop the Zo1s. Forget $500. You charge over $1,000 for the coveted Zo1s. You release like 3 pairs of them. It's all about scarcity with this guy and the marketing tactics there. And I agree with both of you guys. Everyone needs someone to believe in them in that way. That's sort of a pervasive notion that when you get that kind of confidence and belief behind you, you can accomplish a lot. I think where he lost a lot of people was when he made it about himself, when the conversation started to shift to, well, I could beat Michael Jordan in his prime. I could do this, that, and the other. That was where people started to say, oh, is this guy using his sunshine to get himself to other places?
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Talking about LeVar Ball, one of the hottest topics this really this calendar year so far. The guy has been everywhere. We've heard his voice on a lot of platforms. We asked the question. We had everyone talk about last segment who the LeVar Ball in their life is, meaning who's the person that believes you can do anything, that block LeBron James shot, outshoot Steph Curry, outcatch Terrell Owens going across the middle, thanks to T.O. joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line earlier. But we also talked about at the end and during the break some about the business side of this, because there's a couple ways to look at this. And I want to start first off with the basketball side with Lonzo, because I heard you guys talking about this when I was coming back into the room, which is how all of this actually plays out for Lonzo on the court. If he does end up going to the Lakers, Pat, and ends up becoming part of that team, how does he fit in? How does he vibe in Los Angeles with Luke Walton, with all these guys there?
Well, we've seen the kid play. He makes everybody better. His head's on a swivel. He's slender now. He's skinny. So it's tough to really make a comparison. I know everyone's looking at Jason Kidd, which possibly, but there's one thing that going from a college atmosphere to a professional atmosphere is night and day. So he's going to have to figure out the relationships in the locker room. Nothing's going to get him more respect than how he plays on the court. It'd be interesting, though, to see what happens. We talked about D'Angelo Russell now. What happens with him? Paul George, can they get him over to the Lakers? I can't imagine. First of all, everybody wants to play in a city like L.A. for a franchise like the Lakers. And you got a kid like LeVar Ball that can make, Lonzo, not LeVar, trust me. I saw video tape of him.
It's LeVar. When he scores, LeVar scores. LeVar scores when his boys score.
But when he gets on the court, we've seen that game is actually kind of trash.
Right. So Lonzo will make everybody better. So why wouldn't you want to play with a kid like him? So I think it's bright days for the Lakers if we think that the draft is going to go the way it is with Fultz to the Celtics, and then who's going to know what's happened after that, which I don't know why the Lakers wouldn't take him, but you got a lot of talent out there.
I'll tell you why the Lakers are going to take him. The Lakers are going to take him because he's going to change their organization. He brings in star power. L.A., I'll tell you right now, L.A. is screaming for him right now. And the Lakers are setting up to get him. How do you know they're setting up? Because they don't want everybody to know how bad they want him. So they're telling everybody they're looking at Jason Tatum. They're looking at the kid from Kansas. They're looking at Markelle Fultz. They're telling everybody that they're looking at everybody else. So you have this renewed Boston-LA rivalry in the form of the NBA draft again, playing this devil's advocate type of game to let them know, hey, we don't want him. Don't take him, Celtics. Leave him available. He's
wouldn't that be great, though?
At everybody else.
The Celtics draft him with the first pick and then have to trade him to the Lakers for like half their team if they want him that bad, which it won't happen. But I just like little gamesmanship by Danny Ainge and the Celtics. Keep the Lakers on their heels.
That is going to be very interesting. Or,
it's happening.
You've got the dynamic that you could have two of the top two picks in Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball going to those two teams and maybe renewing some of that rivalry just with the 1-2 rivalry there. Markelle Fultz, who a lot of people have talked about as the number one pick for a while, doesn't get nearly the shine because his name is not in the news every other day
because of LeVar.
With the antics.
Because of LeVar.
And to that end, the Lakers president, Magic Johnson, newly appointed president there, talked about in the basketball sense why LeVar Ball won't affect Lonzo's stock at all. Here he is.
What you're drafting is the son and not the father. I think that you also are gauging and evaluating his son on his ability and what he can do not only on the basketball court but also what he can do for your team and how he can enhance and make your team better. And so if we're fortunate to keep our pick wherever that is and you take a look at him.
That was Lakers president Magic Johnson talking about LeVar Ball as it relates to his son Lonzo going into the draft. And it's interesting in a couple of senses. We talked about how polarizing his dad's been, and people have asked how that might affect the basketball side, but then there's the business side of things that we know LeVar is really concerned with. And I know we were all thinking it out loud, but Pat, I'd ask you first, when it comes to selling shoes and selling product the way LeVar is trying to, does bad, is the phrase no such thing as bad pub really still apply in this day and age?
I was thinking about that, and then, immediately you have guys that are buying the shoe and tweeting out. There is so many different types of buyers out there. People who will buy things because of the cockiness of a brand or the big baller brand. And I think what rubs people a lot, though, is LeVar Ball. If his last name was anything but but Ball, and people think he's trying to make money off of his kid. Which I would say this: every kid, okay, if you're in Lonzo Ball's situation, you're dreaming about taking care of your family. So if usually that's an agent or a business manager that's taking percentages. It's just his father is doing it. So I think, for me, if I was in the kid's position, I would want it to be a family business. I would want, because I'm going to take care of my family anyway. So he's just stepping up right there and taking over that role of agent, manager, ring announcer, or whatever else he does. But it's interesting, though, Golic, that you mentioned that, because I do think maybe it'll turn some people off of buying the product, but I think some other people are turned on by that attitude.
Hey, Golic, I got a question. I want to throw something your way, because I feel like you are a part of a family where your he's one of my favorite guys, a professional player, broadcaster. He's just a great, amazing guy. You guys have this amazing family. But you spoke during a break earlier about being media trained, about being savvy. Your father obviously knew how to say the right things, the correct things. There was nothing to worry about. There's a different day and age where you got a kid with no baggage. He knew how to play the game, good pedigree. You knew what you were getting. But LeVar's taking a different route. But you seem to feel a different way, Golic.
Well, here's what I would say is LeVar Ball, ultimate promoter. There is zero question about his ability to drum up interest around his son, around their product. Whether it yields tangible results, we'll wait and see what the shoe sales end up being, what the T-shirt sales and merch sales end up being for them as this happens. But I think, like you guys hinted at earlier, going forward, this could be a blueprint for a guy that's maybe more of a generational talent than Lonzo is. As far as what I said this. I think that LeVar Ball throughout all this has been very calculated. He understands the way this media circus works, and he's played it very well. You see him on all of our platforms here. You see his sound use anytime he speaks, anytime he shows up on any platform, he makes news for us. So he's very calculated, I believe, in what he does, and that he understands that this attention, they need it right now for a grassroots campaign. But I've said he's not always very thoughtful, and whether that came out the comment that you referenced before about him saying white players didn't have the foot speed to keep up, or about his interaction with Christine Leahy on the Herd earlier, yes. I think in those instances where it's okay to call him out and say, you know what, you actually kind of stepped in it there. You flew a little too close to the sun. I said, I'm not surprised, because when you get a guy that's not media trained, that doesn't mean he doesn't understand the media to an extent, but he's not used to every word being parsed through in that way, or every interaction. You can get some of that truth that leaks out in a way that obviously rubs people the wrong way. So you can be calculated but not thoughtful, and I think that's where LeVar Ball runs amok a little bit. That's where it's okay to actually call him on screwing up.
Can I share how I dealt with my LeVar Ball, my Denier Hollins, my father? So I knew my father was out of control, and he would just say these out of control, Ryan can jump over the backboard. So I knew when it came to recruiting, I told my father, I stepped to him man to man, and I said, Dad, in this process, I want you to be my dad. I don't want you to be my coach. I don't want you to be anything else. Trust me and let me handle this college recruiting process and this professional process. And my dad stepped on my toes one time when it came to UCLA and I'm getting recruited. My father sent my film tapes to UCLA, and I absolutely let off on him. I was angry because I said, Dad, you don't understand. These people are recruiting me. I'm not recruiting them. But I knew how badly he wanted his son, me, to stay home at UCLA so he could see me and watch me play. But I put my LeVar Ball in check. He didn't have the opportunity to bust into a locker room or talk to a coach or do this and do that. Every time it happened, I nipped it in the bud. When I came back home to play for the Los Angeles Clippers, he called the office. Well, where's my season tickets? Where's this? I told my dad. I said, you won't be at one game. I was lying to him. He would have been at the game. If you call this office ever again, I said,
he called the office?
Wow.
He called the team office. My LeVar Ball, he did it. And I said, Dad, you got shirts, you got tickets, you got backstage passes, you got more than you need. So you don't need to worry about this, okay? But that was our relationship, and I love my dad to death because he respected that.
And that's interesting, and that's, I think, what a lot of people are going to wait and see going forward is when Lonzo does step and become a grown man playing a professional game, and we know that dynamic changes, certainly for players and coaches in the locker room, but also for a father and son in this instance, is Lonzo ever going to put his dad in check when something like this happens in a professional setting? And I think we're all really interested to see and continue to watch what's kind of become the LeVar and Lonzo soap opera play out in the public light.
Thanks for listening to the Locker Room Podcast. Make sure to subscribe by clicking the Listen tab on the ESPN app.